Well, my name is David Walls. I'm Vice President of Texas Values, and this last panel is going to flow right into what we're talking about. We're going to continue talking about sex education and what's going on at the local level, what's happening at the national level. I'd like to go ahead and invite up our two panelists, Stephanie Curry with Family Policy Alliance, and Caryl, Ayala with Concerned Parents of Texas. Thank y'all so much. Okay. Well, just a little bit more about our guest, just so folks know. Stephanie Curry is the manager of she is the manager of public policy at the Family Policy Alliance, and they are a national public policy partner of Texas Values as well as 40 other state groups. She's a licensed attorney, and her and her husband have twin boys, and so we're very thankful to have Stephanie with us from Colorado. And then my good friend Caryl, she is founded Concerned Parents of Texas. She's a former Austin ISD teacher, and she is passionate about this issue. And we've had the pleasure at Texas Values to be working with her here locally in the city of Austin, and we'll be talking some about that in this panel. But I want to open up and ask the first question. One of the terms that you hear a lot in this discussion on sex education, particularly from the other side, is the term comprehensive sex education. We just want to provide a comprehensive sex education. You'll hear that term. Stephanie, what is a comprehensive sex education?
Yeah, loaded question. Testing. Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. It really is an honor to be here before you all at this conference. It's going beautifully. You've done a wonderful job, so thank you. Yes, comprehensive sex education. Okay, if you don't walk away remembering anything we say, please remember this. Comprehensive sex ed is not a curriculum. It is not education. It is indoctrination. It is a radical social ideology. It's a social movement, and they're forcing it into our schools upon our children. So what we're seeing with comprehensive sex education, and it is far beyond the traditional STD, pregnancy, and biology of sex of the past, and has become very progressive, radical, pushing ideas that many of our children would be naturally repulsed by. Comprehensive sex education teaches our children that they are sexual beings from birth. It teaches our children that they have sexual rights and sexual freedoms. It will teach them that they can have sex with anyone, LGBT, whenever they want, and they can begin at any age. Now, I have passed around at least one document that's going around the room, I hope, with some examples of comprehensive sex ed snapshots of what's in the curriculum. There's also another document we have that you can reach out to Texas Values about Planned Parenthood being one of the biggest writers of comprehensive sex ed curriculums and distributing it all over the world, and how radical it is, and that they are commodifying our children. They are making our children the product. Comprehensive sex ed is getting Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry in front of our children in the classrooms without parents there. That is their goal. They're alienating parents from children. In Colorado, we had comprehensive sex ed pass. Unfortunately, it was a huge battle this past session, and our legislation actually said in the legislation that families with traditional notions on sex and gender were shameful, fearful, based in bigotry, and this was in the law, that they were going to teach this to our children. Comprehensive sex ed tells your child that they may have been born in the wrong body, and it'll teach them how they can change their gender. It will teach them that abortion is perfectly acceptable and they have the right to abortion. It might even give them the number to Planned Parenthood, and you'll see an example of a sexual rights card that's being passed out to children in this packet. And finally, and maybe most insidiously, is that comprehensive sex education is teaching our children to consent to sex. Now, when I was growing up, I remember the no means no curriculum. Now it is literally called yes means yes. And they're teaching our children that they can consent to sex. And most of us in this room know that children don't have a legal right to consent to sex. The law doesn't recognize that right. And actually, in many circumstances, it is illegal and it's a crime. So they are teaching our children about consent, but I guarantee you, they're not teaching our children about pedophilia. They're not teaching them about statutory rape, and they're not teaching them about grooming, which is what comprehensive sex ed is. It is grooming our children.
Wow. Stephanie, one of the other terms that we hear a lot, and I'll get in with Caryl on this, is the term national curriculum, national standards. We've heard that here locally in Austin. We're just trying to put in place national standards. Can you talk to us a little bit about these national standards that we're hearing about, who's behind them, and what agenda they're advancing, trying here in Texas, doing it all over the country?
Yeah, national standards, so there aren't any.
Congress hasn't passed a law for
no,
national
pretty
standards?
sure the federal government does not get involved in sex education, as far as I know. It's a lie. There are no national standards that are required for state boards of education or local school boards to adopt. There are organizations that create, like Planned Parenthood, and their partners that create standards that they call national standards, and then they sell it to school districts and school boards. These are the national standards. And so on the national level, what we're finding is that many state legislators aren't passing comprehensive sex ed, but it's finding its way into the classroom through State Board of Education and local school districts that are just bringing the materials into the classroom. And Planned Parenthood and organizations like it are finding a back door to get into the classroom by offering our teachers CLE credits for taking comprehensive sex ed classes from them. And so they're teaching the teachers how to teach it, and the teachers are going back into the classrooms and teaching Planned Parenthood's curriculum, essentially.
Well, which is exactly what Austin ISD has done, adopted the national standards so that no other kind of program can even be considered. And we'll get more into that.
Yeah. Well, Caryl, let's talk a little bit about Austin ISD,
Okay.
our home. What is happening in Austin ISD right now? I know we're here in Austin. This has been an issue that Texas Valley's been engaged in. I've been engaged in personally, but if you could kind of summarize what's happened in Austin, because I think it's instructive for any school district across the state.
Well, I'm going to get into it, and I want you to keep in mind that this is important to you as well, even if you don't live here. And I'm going to explain why that is. For almost 3 years now, Austin ISD has been trying to implement a comprehensive sex ed program. They've been trying to even get it passed through the Board of Trustees, but we have been very active, concerned parents, in keeping that from happening, much to their chagrin. And yes, it's been a battle. It's been a battle. And I will tell you that they've done a lot of different things, doing a lot of different somersaults, all kinds of things. For instance, they wanted to start in kindergarten and go through 12th grade. Well, because of us and because of others, the community came out, some parents came out, community came out and asked a lot of questions, and they spoke up, so the district had to back off. They wanted to use the Advocates for Youth program, the 3 R's, because it's free, right? And it's totally LGBT. It's created by them, and they wanted to adopt that, but no, parents were like, what do you mean, this and that and the other? So then they had to back off of that. So right now, as we speak, we're talking last week, Austin ISD is in the process of, well, remember the SB 22 that everybody heard about yesterday and that some of you were very active in? Because of that, Austin ISD they decided to keep from buying the Get Real program of Massachusetts, that's Planned Parenthood. And so they had already made their own program, 3rd through 5th grade, with their own people, their own, staff. And so they pulled the Get Real, and they said, now we've got to do our own program. We've got to create our own for 6th through 8th. So basically what's happening now is 3rd through 8th grade, they're getting ready to pass at the board in October that curriculum which has been done in-house. In other words, basically what they do is they go to the internet, they go like to the 3 R's, they go to LGBT resources, comprehensive resources, and they just copy what they have, put it together, and call it the AISD Human and Responsibility Curriculum. So that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, well, and we hosted an event with Caryl a couple of weeks ago and shared a little bit more detail about what's happening, but I just want to also share what we're seeing in a lot of these instances is it's not just the curriculum itself. Obviously, that's they are pushing a radical worldview that they want to impose on children at the youngest of ages. So, that's obviously the top concern. But there's also, these things are always connected to transparency issues where they're trying to hide what they're doing from parents. Here in Austin, they had a survey that went out to parents to try to, so they could get cover to say that they had support for what they were doing. And they literally, I'll just give you one example. There was a question about teaching a 3rd grader about homosexuality. And the question was, is that okay to do in 3rd grade? Is that okay to do in 4th grade? Or is that okay to do in 5th grade? Those were the options. And then past that point, there was one opportunity where the school district actually put the curriculum out for parents to view. They had one meeting. There was only about 40 or 50 parents there because they hosted it on literally the last week of school in May. I attended that meeting, and they provided one copy for all the parents, essentially to have a scavenger hunt over and try to piece together and view. And I talked with some of the members there, and I asked them point blank, I said, do you really believe in your heart of hearts, for example, that it's okay to teach a 3rd grader that they should question their biological sex? Do you really think that it's okay to encourage a child in elementary school to start thinking about and potentially engaging in sexual activity? And they couldn't, some of them waffled around. So this is why it's so important for folks to get involved. Thankfully, we have a state board of education that's holding the line here in the state of Texas. But at the local level, they're making ground. And that's what's happening here in Austin. And so I would just ask Caryl, you mentioned what happens here in Austin is going to have an impact in other places. Share a little bit more about that, because what does happen here, what Austin ends up doing is going to make an impact around the local community.
Yes, and let me tell you how, and I'm so glad you asked that, because first of all, you need to know how it happened here, because that's how it's going to happen where you are. It's done covertly, right? It's like don't ask, don't tell. Okay, for instance, when I was teaching school, my last year with Austin in 2016, when they brought in the Welcoming Schools program, that was their first step. Welcoming Schools is a program for teachers to groom them to be allies for the LGBT initiatives and ideology. And so they started the groundwork first, getting teachers on board, okay? And so right after they did that, and it's done by the Human Rights Campaign, by the way, the largest LGBT or SOGI political lobby group in the country. And Austin was picked to be one of their flagship districts in the country. And they have about 18 at that time. They had signed up about 18 districts, and they picked Austin. So they've opened offices here, and what they did is they found a hub in Austin ISD. because once they started grooming the teachers to be allies, then from there they were going to spread all the other district LGBT initiatives through Austin ISD. Y'all know about the Pride Parade that happens here. And they literally take children, school children, we were told as teachers, to encourage and invite our children to go to the city Pride Parade. And that was 2016 when they started doing that. And this year was just the second year they did that. But what you don't know is
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we got invited to that. I mean, the Austin ISD sent an invite out to every parent in the city of Austin and invited our family. I have a 7-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, invited our family to come participate in their Pride Parade at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night on a weekday. I mean,
Well, and David, what you might not know is that's the city Pride Parade, but in October, Austin ISD will have Pride Week at all of their schools. And they will have community pride parades that walk around the community. They will do cross-dressing. They will do all. Let me tell you, there's a school in town that literally takes LGBT kids, transgender kids, boys who dress like girls, that wear, pink hair, ponytails, girls' clothes, and they pair them up with an elementary school campus through the PALS program, which is a mentor-type program we've had for years in Austin ISD, and they were reading books to these little boys. And one of them is called The Princess Boy. They are struggling readers. Okay? And did they tell you? Did they tell the parents? No. So what happens here is bleeding out to the rest that way, because they've started here, and for instance, in the Austin area, people have moved out to the suburbs, right? So we know definitively just now that Hayes County, they're mentoring them. Dripping Springs, they've mentored them. So that's how it starts. They're teaching them how to do it. So what happens here, the rest of the state is watching.
Yeah. Thank you, Caryl, for sharing that. I want to ask another question and bring Stephanie back in. It's so important for parents to be engaged. Obviously parents have the ultimate responsibility to educate their children, and they have to be the watchful eye and to watch out and be engaged. Even for me, working at Texas Values, I've gotten a crash course in the last year here in Austin ISD about how engaged you have to be just to find out what's going on. So I'd like to ask both of y'all, just what is the most important thing that you wish parents knew about sex ed that they don't know?
They don't know. Well, I think what I said at first was that it's radical social indoctrination, and to be really involved in your child's education, really involved in reviewing the resources that they're bringing home, having conversations, but also we all know that, and I know most of the parents here would do that, and grandparents even. But also, you can be involved. There's curriculum board review committees that you can go to. You can testify at your local school board meetings. You can testify at your state board of education meetings. You can meet with the principal. You can ask to review lesson plans if you know that this is coming down the pipe. You can ask to look at lesson plans and even sit in your child's classroom and observe. You can ask for these resources. You can opt your child out and say, no, my child isn't going to be a part of this. Right. You can excuse your child from class, and of course there's school choice options as well, which I know isn't available for all parents. But in California, we know that's one of the most liberal places, and their comprehensive sex ed is outrageous, which is where a lot of these examples come from. But they're a concerned parents group, like what Carol's involved in, is they have been so successful. They've even gotten some of their school boards to pool curriculum in California. In Colorado, we have local control like you do in Texas. And some of our school districts, since we passed our legislation this past session, have stood up and said, that's unconstitutional, we're not following it, you're stepping on our toes. So we're looking to Texas. I know we're the rest of the nation, we're really looking to Texas. We've got to be the fire line. I know Texas has been and is a fire line, and I know it's a lot of pressure, but you all have lived up to it, so please keep fighting.
Thank you. Thank you. Caryl, same final question to you. What's the most important thing that you wish parents knew?
Well, I made some notes because I don't want to leave anything out, but I promise it's short and sweet. In the state of Texas, sex ed is not mandatory. Not any kind. Okay? I want to tell you, take your children back. Grandparents, your kids are floundering with their children because they know they will be attacked. They're afraid, and they have a right to be. We have seen what it happens to parents who speak up. Help them. Stand in the gap. You can opt out kids. That's right. Your school districts, and did you know that in Texas, every school district is supposed to send communication to parents before the school year starts about sex ed and their opportunity to opt out if they want to. In Texas, you have a right to see the curriculum, but good luck with that. You're going to have to go to the campus, and you're going to have to stand your ground. Be kind, but don't give up. You should know, like Stephanie said, we did the same thing. Okay, like Stephanie said, sex ed, sexuality, and these progressive agendas are not limited to the sex ed program. They're everywhere. They're in the library. Didn't you just see the article about Fort Worth that has filled their library with books? Austin's been doing that now for 4 years. Speak up. Speak up. Come to the board meeting. Sometimes it gets lonely. Come to the board meeting and speak up there. Speak up. That has been the most effective. And the last thing I want to share with you is this. While we're busy getting the state houses filled with righteous people, they're indoctrinating the little people. So it won't matter who's up there, because by the time they get up there, they will have won. And that's why this fight, you should get involved. And look us up. Join us. Help us. We need help in all kinds of ways, big and little. Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Let me, I want to give a final plug for both organizations. Family Policy Alliance does great work at the national level, and again, they're one of our national partners that helps coordinate us with the other state groups, and they actually have a great resource on their website. If you know of folks that are in other states, you can go there and see what the Family Policy Council is in your local state. And then just another plug for Caryl, what we're doing here in the city of Austin. If you're from Austin and you haven't engaged, this is maybe new information about what's going on. We are still in the middle of this battle right now. We have delayed them from doing what they wanted to do, but the fight is continuing, and so I would encourage folks to get engaged with Caryl, get engaged with us at txvalues.org. We have an action alert on our website right now where we're continuing to encourage folks to contact the Austin School Board to make a difference on this issue. So thank y'all both much for being with us.